And the drummers. Tell the drummers to come on. The drummers. They're coming. Good afternoon, namaste. The glare from that front door is just too much. Yeah. I was waiting for the drummers. They, okay. They were anxious to be heard. So I told them I'd wait for them. I always like to encourage initiative. Brother Lee, are they ready? Oh, they don't want to drum in? I thought they were wanting to drum in. Oh, okay. My mistake. Well, let me say namaste to all of you this afternoon. It is my surprise, pleasure, and honor to be asked to conduct the Bible study for this afternoon. Yeah, each day is full of surprises, but you must walk with the Lord and sermons from the Lord each day, so that those that have not heard the wondrousness of His Word can get a taste of it and want more. Because people ask me, well, how long does it take you to prepare a sermon? I said, I walk with a sermon every day. I said, you can encounter me in the supermarket or on stage, backstage in dance class, wherever, and I will have a sermon for you. Because when you live a life close to the Lord, He gives you that ability to go down into your spirit and bring out the riches that He has placed there. And you explain that to young people, of course. You explain it to the elders too. That's why the elders are so important, because God has given them so many wonderful gifts and stories. And I constantly tell people that you must sit at the elders' feet and listen. And maybe some of the foolishness that you practice out in the street would not be reality, because you should be listening to what the elders have to say, because they know they've lived it prior to becoming the age that they are. Let us bow our heads for a moment of prayer. Dear Mother, Father God, we thank you for this afternoon. We thank you for bringing us together to study your word and manifestations around your word. We thank you for life one more day. We ask that you be merciful to us. Grant us love and peace and quality of life. We ask that you would bless this ministry, bless the bishop and all of his clergy. We ask that you protect him as he goes and comes each day. Keep him on a strong path, Lord, and help him to continue to serve his people by way of your guidance. We thank you for all the elders here at the church, and we lift them up in prayer. We ask that you bless them in a mighty way. Bless the children, bless all the aunties and the uncles and the neighbors and all people of goodwill who mean us well. Bless them and protect us from the evil one, that we may go and come without any mishap. These and all good things we ask in your name. Let all say amen. Now, I had mentioned to the bishop about lecture on symbolism, because there's so many symbols around that have an ancient origin. And people look at them and say, oh, isn't that pretty? You know, so you say, yes, it is pretty, but it has a meaning. It's just like certain signs that you see in the street that may be pretty, but people look at them and they don't see the real in-depth meaning of them. They just see the fact that they're pretty. But all signs that are pretty are not wholesome. I was mentioning to the bishop in the establishment of the symbolism lectures how the Catholics have played a very important part in addressing the perspective of symbols. From ancient times, there's always been the Catholics, and of course many people don't know what the word Catholic means. It means encompassing all other faiths. And many people don't know that if you say you're Catholic, you're supposed to believe or at least respect other faiths that tie in with yours, or at least are friendly to yours. And there was a time in history where people didn't I mention a very important part of the world that gave us great culture and great symbols, and that was Spain. Spain was known as Iberia. And many people, when you mention today Iberia, they said, where was Iberia? We know about Nigeria and we know about Liberia, but we haven't heard much about Iberia. Iberia. I said, well, you haven't heard much about Iberia because Iberia was so far advanced in European culture that people were afraid to even mention Iberia. They had the height of medicine, of government, and of course of religion and spirituality. And you will find that the Moors, which is what black people were called in those days, the Moors ruled Spain and for over 400 years, and they allowed every other religion in the world to flourish there without being done away with or persecuted or the whole 9 yards. They just let them be. Any civilization that can do that successfully is an advanced civilization. Because as you can see now, what you see in the world in terms of people fighting each other, nations against nations and so forth, you find that people aren't so readily willing to accept people because of prejudices and perceived prejudices. Now, we have symbols that were parallel to African deities in the Catholic Church. When the European and the Portuguese and the English went to various parts of the world, they used their household staff and their slaves as a status symbol. They said on Sunday you will see the master of the plantation with his 8 concubines and 3 wives and his field slaves marching to the church to praise Jesus Christ. But they never mentioned the fact that after 4 o'clock, or as dusk comes upon the land and it gets dark, the people would go to what is called the condomble, or the Cathedral of the African Saints. And every Christian saint had an African counterpart. You could tell what deity an individual worshipped by the beads that they wear on their neck. If you ever see someone with like very beautiful colored beads, small ones, on their neck, you know that they are worshippers of traditional African religion, which is known as voodoo. And the colors of the beads indicate what deities they are devoted to. If you see mine are yellow and white, which brings forth an appreciation and a devotee of Oshun, which is the Yoruba deity of fresh water and beauty. If you see someone with blue beads, that means they are a devotee of Yamaya, the goddess of the waters. You will see also black and red, which is symbolizing Ogun, not Ogun, but Eshu, Ilegba, the trickster deity. He is said to be the devil incarnate and brings all manner of confusion to the world. Then you have black beads. The black beads mean you are a devotee of Ogun, who is the guardian of iron and all things metal, and the devotee of automobiles and things of that nature. Then you have the white beads. And the white beads are devoted to Obatala, or the paramount deity of the Yoruba pantheon, Oshala, or Obatala. And then we have Oshosi, which is the deity that is responsible for growing food and hunting, providing sustenance for the people. So all of these deities let people know that in addition to the Catholic saints that they worship on Sunday morning, the slaves had their own system of recognizing the deities that their ancestors worshipped, and they do it after dark. Now, many people do not understand how people can live in spiritual duality. They say, well, if you worship one, can you really worship another without one getting angry? Well, saints and deities don't get but so angry. All that angry stuff comes from human beings sometimes. So as a result of that, it's not so much anger as it is understanding. There's one deity whose color is also blue and brown. She is known as Mamiwata. Mamiwata is a contemporary deity, and you will find her in many Catholic churches throughout the Caribbean and throughout Puerto Rico and Cuba and Haiti. She was the mermaid on the bow of a ship that came to Calabar Island in Nigeria regularly to trade. They would trade gold, diamonds, copra, and slaves. And because she came on the bow of the ship all the time and brought increase or wealth, they decided to deify her. So whatever you use or obtain on a regular basis in the African society or African pantheon becomes deified and is given worship and appreciation. Many people don't understand how Mamiwata could become a deity when Mamiwata was an inanimate entity in the beginning. Well, once you understand that which you use regularly has a spirit of its own that serves you, then you can understand that. In your home, you may have a special spoon that you use all the time. If you use that spoon enough, you will develop the spirit in that spoon, and it will serve you unconditionally. And people say, how did you get that food to taste so good? You say, the spoon did it. And many people say, what did you say? I said, the spoon did it. Well, why would the spoon do it? I said, because the spoon wants to give you thanks for honoring it. And it does so by making your food taste good. I told some people the other day, Mental Health Association International, about talking to trees. And I gave a good example. My neighbor's yard is duly fertilized every year. He puts a ton of fertilizer on his grass so that he can have the best grass in the neighborhood. Little did he know that plants communicate with each other. And I don't put fertilizer on my grass, but what happened was his grass shared the fertilizer with my grass. And the grass grew just as beautiful in my yard as it did in his yard. So he would come and say, how did that happen? I said, well, you must understand that plants are more cooperative than humans. And they cooperate with each other for the sake of the planet. I said, and whether you want to believe it or not, the proof can be seen in two yards, one consciously fertilized, the other one unconsciously fertilized, but they are both what? Living. So what does the proverb say? The right hand washes the left, and the left hand washes the right. that both may be clean. And when you tell people such proverbs, they say, that makes sense. I said, yes, it does. But the things that are so simple, and you find out the significance of these things through symbolism, the thing that's so miraculous is that they are, in fact, so simple and spiritual. I'll give you another example. How many people have seen a race car flag with a black and white check? Yes. In the Akan tradition, a black and white check flag has the proverb on it that says why. W-H-Y. Why? Why does this happen? Why does that happen? And they use that flag not knowing what it means in the Akan tradition. The Akan people in Ghana know what it means. The European who uses it does not know. But it's important that you should know, because you walk around, you walk under, around, and through symbols that have what? Spirits on them. And you have to be careful. You ever hear somebody say, don't walk under that ladder? Or what's another one? Don't walk under that ladder. Oh, don't let black cats cross your path. What else? Don't step in holes or cracks on the sidewalk. What else? What else have you heard? What they tell you to do with your hair when you have it cut? Burn it. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. So you see that symbolism to the African played a very important part in his life. The slaves would make certain things that the European found novel and pretty, but in fact they were sending a message to each other as to which way to go or which way not to go, what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say. And these mysteries of symbolism are rich perspectives that young people should know, because it's a situation where, because there's not enough mystery in the life of young people, they make very, very bad choices and bad mistakes in life. You have to know what it means. And the only way you can find out what it means is to go to, of course, the Bible and to elders. Now, how many people have an understanding of the snake on the stick? The snake on the stick. Every doctor's office you go to, every doctor you go to has a snake on a stick outside his office. And the scenario of the story was some people were sick and they were told that if thou would look upon the snake, upon the stick, thou shalt be healed. Yes, it's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. And you ask the average person about the snake on the stick, they don't know about the snake in the grass, let alone, let alone the snake on the stick. So I'm saying that to say that there are things that you see all the time, and they have no meaning to you because no one ever stopped to tell you what it was, or even took the time to say, come here, let me show you something. And, you know, young people sometimes, they say, well, Ma daddy or grandpa. What does that mean? I mean, what does that mean to me? It might save your life one day, because it is something that is rich, something that has foundation, something that has meaning. Now, here we are at Imani Temple. Everybody knows what the drum means around here because of the drumming from day one that Imani has had. And his brother Earl back there. But we had a discussion this morning out under the palaver tree. I'll call it the palaver tree because in Africa that's where they do it. The men come together under the tree and they discuss the problems. And if somebody has a wayward son, they say, okay, we're going to jack him up and let him know that the men in the village are not going to stand for him turning the joint out all the time. Same thing with the young ladies. The women will sit under the tree, and when they see a certain girl who's not doing what she's supposed to do, they say, hey, come here. Let me put a bug in you, on your ear. So it's important to understand the saviorship of each other and ourselves by adhering to symbolisms of various types. Every day you go out and drive your car, you'll see a sign that says yield. But do you know that most of the people who are driving don't know what yield means? They think it means speed up. It does not. It means slow down. So instead of saying slow down, which they should spell it out, you look at the sign says yield. And they don't know what yield means. That's why you have so many accidents. Because people are trying to beat each other out because they think that yield means speed up, and it does not. Give me another example of a sign that you see regularly. Caution. People don't know what caution means. They think that means you go jump in front of somebody. You know? Well, it's a situation where in America, ignorance has become the norm as opposed to the exception. And the reason for that is that people expect computers to do for them what we used to do for ourselves. Let me give you an example. Most of us here, elders, you remember having to take typing 1 and typing 2 before you graduated from high school? You were not going to get that certificate until you took typing 1 and typing 2, and you better had be able to type 40 words a minute before you left up out that school. Now, here we come along with computers and phones with keyboard on it, and we don't know how to type. So what do? We do texting. And texting is just an ignorant way of saying, I don't know the keyboard, and I'm going to hunt and peck until I say what I want to say. It makes a big difference. But that kind of symbolism makes people make mistakes in terms of understanding. It makes people unresponsive to human emotion. You know, have you gone into a restaurant and see a family come in and the younger people's heads are down in the phone, video game or whatever during the whole time? The only time they look up is when the server comes and they tell the server what they want, and they barely do that. The mom and the dad has to prod them, well, what do you want? Oh, you know. They're so much into the video game or the iPod that they can't even tell the server what they want. Then when the server brings the food, "Oh, this is not what I wanted." Well, why didn't you speak out of your mouth and tell them what you want? And there are parents who allow this behavior. And as a result, they miss out on a lot of rich stuff. When you go to the grocery store, there's so many symbols in the grocery store that tell you how to shop or tell you what you're buying. And many people don't know because they haven't bothered to educate themselves. The church is one place, the workplace is another. People put smiley faces on paper, and depending on how you put it on there, you can make a mistake. Maybe it should have been a frown face. But you can't correct it because they'll bring the whole neighborhood down there and threaten to beat you up if that happens to you in a given scenario. So I'm going to stop at this point and take questions or comments, because I know all of you out there have some experience with dealing with symbols and mysteries, I call them, that need to be known for everyday saviorship.
I got one that I've been noticing.
The microphone is on.
Boy, he beat me up right quick on that one. I've been watching one symbol that I noticed different countries now, even here at the inner harbor, this big Ferris wheel thing. And that's in different countries. I wonder if you have any ideas about what that's about.
Well, we're in the generation of fun.
Okay.
Farfik Nugan, and what was the other one? I forget the other one. It was from the 60s. Farfik Nugan and something else with the Volkswagen. But people want to be known as fun people. And you see that symbol, it means that we are telling you that we are fun people. And some people who have those symbols really aren't fun people, they just want your money. And they'll tell you that they're fun people until you do something, and then they'll throw you in jail and cane you half to death for breaking their law. But that's basically what it's for, to let people know that you are fun-loving people. Instead of showing people, they'd rather put in a decal. Mm-hmm.
While we have you here, I know you're talking about safety and everything we run into, but you have such a wealth of information. I would be interested, and I could be outnumbered, your input on the Andinkra symbols, because that is important to us.
Say that again.
The Andinkra symbols?
Yes.
Okay.
Adinkra is the Akan way of projecting symbolism for further discussion and meaning. When I say further discussion and meaning, you can't say everything that you want to say to a person or group of people at a given point in time. So what you do is you create a cloth that will have symbols on it that gives people your frame of mind. So each Adinkra symbol has a different perspective. If you see a heart, you know that means what? Love. So that means that from your spirit, you are a loving person, and it is used for funerals. I happened to be in Ghana in 1972. Was it 72? 70 or 72. When they inaugurated Apokoware as king of the Ashanti people, and his totem was a turtle. And he had to become the embodiment of a gold turtle in order to be in stool. Now those ingots that they covered his body in were pure gold. and he had to be carried. He couldn't walk. He had to be carried by the people from his village in a palanquin, which is a big basket, and to the area where they were going to install him. The proverb for the turtle is, I may be slow, but I'm steady. That's the symbolism of the turtle. So if you saw a turtle on somebody's fabric, what they're saying to you is, I may be slow, but I'm steady. If you see other geometric symbols in a dinka cloth, each one has a different meaning. Some use birds and animals, like the Sankofa bird. Go back and fetch. Any person that you see wearing a Sankofa bird on their fabric, you know is a person of historic interest. They like history. So they go back and fetch history, ancient history, bring it to the fore. If you saw a gun on their dinka cloth, then you would know that they were what? Warriors. Warlike and warriors. Yah Santua, who got the golden stool back from the British, wore guns tattooed on her fabric because she was a warrior queen. And the men wouldn't go out to get the stool back, so she took the women and went up there and kicked the British behind and took it back. And says, now you do it again. Do it again. And as a result of that, the British, in a timid way, proclaimed Ghana a protectorate. Like the Ghanaians needed somebody to protect them. That was to save face. But Yah Santua said, if the men won't go get the stool, we'll go get the stool. So she gathered all the women, and they went up there and made war. And they had muskets, machetes, but they said the women were merciless. And female warriors have always been more merciless than males because they have children. And they, to protect their children, they will do anything. So, you want to get in trouble, you mess with somebody's children and have the mama be around. She will turn you upside down. You must be a fool. I told some young men about women being superior to men. So they said, how can you as a male sit here and tell us that women are superior to men? I said, they are. They said, how? I said, they can do things you can't. No, that's wrong. I said, okay. I said, did you know that women can have children? Oh, I ain't talking about that. I said, well, what are you talking about then? No, we're talking about other things. I said, oh, yeah, well, it's the other things that you need to learn. I said, women are superior to males because they can have children and males cannot. Well, there has to be a male involved. I said, yes, I understand that. But the male doesn't carry a child for 9 months. Hello? Okay, don't get it wrong now. So it's these types of things that young people need to know. Because you hear the young men, I love my baby, but I hate my baby's mother. How can you hate a woman who carried a baby 9 months for you? How can you? You can't. Your child. And you love the baby and hate the mother. But that's what slavery has done to us. And this is why what we're doing here now is so important. I go to a lot of schools, I do a lot of lectures, along with my dancing and so forth, drumming, because it's necessary. The Mental Health Association Friday said, when I told them that they must understand the necessity for using possession therapy to heal people. And I said, people don't like using possession therapy because people think they're crazy. I said, but possession therapy works like this. If somebody comes in Imani Temple and the drumming gets to them and they start shaking all over and making a strange noise, they're not losing their mind. They are possessing a spirit. And they will tell you what they want. And after they have delivered their message, they'll leave. That's how possession therapy works. And many people have people in their family that have been marked as crazy. And they're not crazy. But they are possessors, and they want to be heard and understood. And people are running from them because they're scared. It's just that simple. You may have neighbors that are a bit strange, but that doesn't mean they're crazy. You know, I told them, I said, because you're homely and your mother dressed you funny doesn't mean that you're crazy. You're just homely. And your mother dressed you funny. But that's no reason to shun what? The individual, because they have a right on the planet. And I said, you must come to understand as clinicians that God is who? God is in charge, and God is God and not you. Too many people think they're God. I said, you're not God. You cannot judge. You cannot get silly with the manifestations that God and nature put on this earth. I had a drummer tell me one time, you know, you need to stop your foolishness. I said, what do you mean? He said, everybody that walks in that door, you make over them, oh, hi, y'all. You look at so-and-so's here, come and say hi to so-and-so and so-and-so. And you know them ugly niggas ain't nobody to be making over. I said, well, what about you? I said, when you come in the door, I make all the kids come and say hello to you and give you a hug and make over you like you're the greatest guy in the world. I said, what about you? Oh, that's different. I said, no, it's not. That ain't different. I said, you're just as funny looking as the rest of them. I said, your ears are too big, your arms are longer than they should be, and you look like a pretzel. And I said, I'm not saying this to put you down. I said, well, I'm letting you know that you can be just as funny looking as anybody else, but yet you are still what? Worthy. See, you're a child of God and you are worthy. So when I go into classrooms a lot of times, I have to tell the children that you are worthy. That's one of the first statements that I make. I said, you are worthy. They said, what does that mean? I said, you're just as good as anybody else, sweetheart. I said, and regardless of what people think you look like or whatever, make fun of you or whatever, I said, remind them that we are all God's children. Makes a difference. So did I have a couple more questions or comments? Yes.
Could you explain the symbols on the pew here? The symbols here?
The Jinya May,
Not the ginger man, on the altar right here.
which, no.
A,
Alpha and Omega.
these symbols here.
Let's see.
This and that.
They're Alpha and Omega.
Okay. Those three symbols?
The first and the last. Jesus is first and last. Jesus is first and last. Alpha and Omega. Yes. From the Greek. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, the Greeks borrowed, I'm being nice. The Greeks borrowed, I didn't say stole. The Greeks borrowed a lot of symbolism from the Egyptians and from other people of melanin hue, the Ethiopians, from the Catholic Church, etc., etc. But truth be told, a lot of the symbols that you find in Christendom have come from Ethiopia. They have come from Egypt, and they have come from mixtures, amalgams. When I say mixtures, the Crusaders created their own emblems. The Saracens created their own emblems so that they pledged allegiance to the spirits of those war deities that they took with them. And many people don't know that, but the Crusades was not about perspectives of jihad. It was to steal the riches of the East. The Muslims had so much gold and diamonds and rupees and knowledge about medicine and the whole 9 yards. And the Europeans were living in caves. So they didn't know anything about that. They didn't even know about soap. It is said that a lot of the Scotch, Irish people use a very devious means to win wars against the English. Of course, you've heard that Mary Queen of Scots was a light-skinned black person. Have you heard that? Yes. It said Mary Queen of Scots was a light-skinned black woman. Her mother was African, her father was Scottish. So if you see black people who have light skin and freckles and red hair, you know that they have Scottish blood in their family. But it was a situation where Mary Queen of Scots was recognized as a black woman ruling that nation, and that in order to win battles, the Scotch-Irish people would rub themselves with feces. They would rub all over their whole body and go to the battlefield. Now, can you imagine what that smelled like, and you going out to fight somebody? You don't want to fight them. You would run. And that's how they won a lot of their battles, by smearing their body with feces and running to the battlefield. And the people said, no way. Y'all got it. We go. Y'all got it. Y'all done won this battle, because I ain't, no. But that just lets you know how far people's deviousness will go to win a battle. And believe me, back in those times, people were merciless. They were cutting people's heads off all day. But you had to have a gimmick or an angle to save your life. And the Scotch-Irish people used that gimmick to do that. It's the same thing in Nigeria among the Yoruba, Madame Tinubu. I knew her nephew. He still lives in Lagos. He's a very wealthy man. And Madame Tinubu used to throw 100 slaves in the Lagos Lagoon every day to feed the sharks, because the sharks were like as big as whales. And she did that to make people fear her. So on any given day, you could be rounded up and thrown into the lagoon to be eaten alive by these sharks. But people used a variety of things to frighten people. Just like now they use guns, of course, and knives and whatever, but they haven't seen some of the stuff that people used in ancient times to terrorize people. And America's always talking about terrorism when they perpetrate some very potent terrorism, cultural terrorism, political terrorism, religious terrorism. And they don't call it terrorism, they call it what do they call it? Call it what? Business as usual. Yes. Do we have another comment or question? Yes.
One more time, what was the queen's name in Ghana again, and what tribe or what sect was she from? warrior, the warrior
Madam
queen.
Tinubu,
Tinubu, and
Tinubu.
and so what group or what?
She was a Yoruba.
Okay,
That's Nigeria.
Yeah.
If you type in Madam Tinubu, it'll come up. Your Google will come up saying the Blood Queen of Lagos.
I thought it was Ghana you were talking about. That's why.
No,
Oh,
Nigeria.
Okay, Nigeria. Okay.
Yeah. The Blood Queen of Lagos. hmm Say it again.
Thank you for the talk that you talked today. It took the weight that I was carrying when I left the first time, and I got all the way around down. They turned me back around,
hmm
and I was taught well. You know that. I thank you again for reminding me. And it took me back to the African part of me, and so much that I learned. So I thank you.
My
And thank
pleasure.
Mother Taylor, I always thank her. All my ancestors,
Yes.
they taught me well. So thank you, because they turned. I never thought. I thought today you got me. Because you saw me, I came, I left what I was going to leave,
Mhm.
turned around and went back.
Yes.
And all of a sudden they said, and everybody knows I was back here in about 15 minutes.
That's right. Yeah.
So I know it had to be something that I had to hear.
Akwaba. Akwaba is welcome home. That's my statement to you, bro.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. In the same vein of Akwaba is Madasi Pa. That's Chui for thank you, Madasi Pa. And I don't know whether you all know it or not, but there's a community of 143,000 African Americans living in Ghana now. Yep. They have businesses. They are welcoming our brothers and sisters there, and they're doing a wonderful, wonderful job of welcoming people to Africa. And Ghanaians have always been very hospitable to African Americans, and they've always welcomed African Americans and readily accepted them into their homes. Unfortunately, Nigerians are still grappling with colonial fallout. A lot of them still think they're white or that they're British, whatever. And so they don't too much cotton to African Americans to some degree, but it's kind of cool. Central Africa, they're waking up. South Africa, of course, is doing their thing. And North Africa too, for that matter. But you would be shocked at the number of Chinese who live in Africa and who have businesses in Africa. The Chinese are everywhere in Africa, because they're making money, and they are not afraid of the infrastructure dichotomy. When people say, what's the infrastructure dichotomy? the Chinese are like the Africans. They're very, they are very, I had the word right on the tip of my tongue. They're very capricious. They're not exacting people. They are exacting when it comes to important things, but trivial things, they're not. I'm going to give you an example. Europeans condescend people by whether they're late coming to a meeting or not. If you're late, you're inferior. But the Africans come late, the Chinese come late, and they get their business done. The European goes there, stomping his feet, banging on the table, and he gets nothing. They tell him, look, take that elsewhere. We don't need that. But they think similarly. Their countries are developing. They have a common enemy in the forest. We know who that is. And they get along. They get along famously. They really do. So they've done bridges, office buildings, they've gotten Wi-Fi, all kinds of internet hookups, and so forth. So they're doing well. They're doing very well.
Europe has never gone in Africa with the intention of developing it.
Oh, no.
And now the Chinese have come in and
Yes.
they've built bridges and they're
Yes.
dealing with sewage and water. And so now the Europeans are looking at the Chinese and are fighting. One part of Trump's fight with the Chinese
Yep.
is based on the fact of what China is doing in Africa. Because Europe had no intentions with AID, with USIA. Their
Yes.
intention was to keep it. If they've been in there over 100 years, to keep it underdeveloped, to keep, and Africa has more resources than anybody in the world. You can't have a cell phone without going to get a resource from Africa.
That's right.
But when you look at Kuwait and you look at the people who are benefiting from the oil that's going out of their country,
Yeah.
and look at Africa, we should be the richest people on this planet.
It's true.
You know, and we're not. But the Chinese, even though they're going in there to get something out, they're also putting something there.
Yeah, they are. They're being kind to us. They're being very kind to us because we share similar cultures, and that's the family culture. Chinese, their family culture. African culture is a family culture on the continent. Some people try it here. I tell a story about the man that had 8 wives. And people say, well, why do you have so many wives? This is in conjunction with a protest against clitorectomy. Some people came around about 10, 15 years ago and said, there's a dance that you do from Guinea called Chin, and we don't want you to do this dance anymore. I said, why? They said, because when you dance and cross your legs back and forth like this, that means that you are cutting the clitoris of women for clitorectomy. So he said, okay, so if you don't want clitorectomy, what are you replacing it with? We're not replacing it with anything. We just want to remove that from the society. We said, well, you can't take an ancient custom and remove it from society and expect the whole that you make not to cause a problem. So you have to come up with another solution to that problem or leave it alone. Now, people don't understand the division of labor in an 8-wife household. I've known African American men that got 8 wives, and you take pictures of them and all the wives are standing there smiling and the husband is looking like he's about ready to die. But the fact is, people don't marry 8 wives for that. They marry for division of labor. They don't understand that. They don't go that deep into the culture. Oh, man, I got 8 wives. 8 wives? Oh, man. die and go to heaven, you know. But the fact was they wanted the clitorectomy taken out of the culture. And that was what was saving the culture from extinction. So these are white women, of course, you know this, saying that they want the clitorectomy removed. But it remained because the people determined that it was to be that way, the elders and the elder women, whatever. They said, we've done this for thousands of years, and here you come up here barely knowing the name of your genitalia and trying to tell us what to do with it. So, you know, you see strange things in African culture, especially when it comes to Europeans, who think they're more civilized than other people in the world, when in reality they're not. They think they have the answer, and they don't. It's just that simple. Did I see another hand back there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Father, when you talk about European, the European realize something that we as a people do not comprehend. If you were to take an airline, excluded Dallas, and get an airline going to Africa, going home, you will find that 90% of the people on that aircraft are young African females,
Mm-hmm.
but their husbands are European.
Yes.
And they have 5 and 9 little yellow-haired kids and holding on to them. What they realize and understand is, since we can't kill you out, then let us go ahead and breed your women like cattle.
Yes.
Okay? Breed them like cattle, and that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And a prime example, if you ever have the privilege of visiting Equatorial Guinea, you will find
Mm-hmm.
that 70% of the politicians are female,
Mm-hmm.
but 80% of them have white husbands.
That's right.
Okay?
Colonialism.
Okay? White husband. Okay? You have to understand what I say to everyone, to my people, is understand the snake. We plan for today. Those snake plans for centuries.
Oh, sure.
Okay? Africa, Israel is in Africa. Haven't changed. Okay? Where the oil is in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You look at all the war that was fighting right now that they're running from, killing the male and taking the women. It has more oil there than any part of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't want the oil today. We don't want that. We need to get rid of the male. Breed your women like cattle. And not our generation, but 5, 7 generations down the road, begin to look like us.
Yes.
Okay? Same thing.
Because the ozone layer is getting thinner every year. And those who don't have melanin cannot face the sun. They cannot. That's why you find all this miscegenation, because of the fact that the ozone layer is getting thinner, the sun is getting hotter, and European people can't take it. People with melanin can. They cannot. Yeah, so it makes a difference.
When I was in school, there were 3 races of people: the Mongoloid, the Negroid, and the Caucasoid.
Right.
And everybody else was a mixture of those 3.
Uh-huh.
You know, and when you look at the Arabs, they're talking, but they're a mixture of black and white
Sure.
throughout the generations. And what you were saying, with people coming 5 or 6 generations, it's the same thing, you know. But you have to be a mixture of one of those 3.
Look at us now. We all mixed up now.
Well, you know, we find that in the mixing of races, that the Silk Road across northern Africa and into Asia had a lot to do with the mixing of races. I did a program with the Koreans about 10 years ago where we explored Korean dance and African dance together. And many of the dances that the Koreans were doing were similar to the African dances and vice versa. So they said, how is that possible? I said, have you studied your history about the Silk Road? They said, no. I said, well, along the Silk Road, many people from many lands traversed this road to trade silk. I said, and of course, during their leisure time, they cohabitated. I said, and this is how you get such a mixture of people. But the cultures remain static, meaning that you could see a dance among the Koreans that was, say, was similarly or more or as popular among Africans as it was Koreans. Then you had the Fulani peoples, the Hausa peoples, the Fulputi peoples, and the Mandingos, and people like that coming in. So, you know, it was a situation where it was inevitable that we would have mixed race people. But in having mixed race people, people over there had a tendency to handle it a little better than people over here because of the chattel slavery perspective. Chattel slavery messed up a lot of people. It really did. A lot of families, a lot of dynasties came and went because people didn't have the right frame of mind. So, to be continued. Okay, we'll take one more. Yes.
I said, can you ask the Grace person?
Oh.
Some people have to catch a bus or something.
Oh, okay.
It's only 1 hour.
Oh. Okay. Good. I'll do it. Heads bowed, eyes closed. Dear Mother, Father, God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to be here and to fellowship with each other. We ask that you would bless us as we leave and guide us safely home. Thank you for all the many wonderful things you've given us. Make us good people. Help us, Lord, to do your work. Bless all that has come and bless all that will go. These and all good things we ask in the name of Jesus the Christ and our ancestors that all say amen.
I just have one thing. I think we should, it's me again, it's majority. No, we're not going to do it. We should consider establishing a fifth Wednesday and not fast on the fifth Wednesday. So think it over, and next week we can discuss it, or you can discuss it today.
They know you. Yes, please.
Whatever they had.
What do they have?
I don't know him going back there. Usually, together make a lunch meal.
Okay. All right, thank you. How's our boy doing? Good?
He graduated.
Oh my goodness. That much time has gone by.
Yeah, the athletics scholarship. He graduated in 4 years.
Time just